Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global community, and we might just find a real soldier's story from your location too. In the final, chaotic months of 1945, as the world was breathing a collective sigh of relief, a young American soldier from Los Angeles made a discovery that would echo through the rest of his life. Today on WW2 Tales, we're peeling back the layers of a routine inspection that turned into a moment of pure, unadulterated shock. Imagine this. A weary corporal, going through the motions, opens an enemy's locket and finds a message that wasn't meant for him, but was somehow destined for his eyes. The place was a makeshift POW camp, somewhere in the American zone of occupied Germany. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the unspoken tension that lingers after a long conflict. Among the hundreds of defeated German soldiers was a young man, barely older than 20, who clutched a small, tarnished silver locket as if it were his last connection to a world that had vanished. His name was Klaus, and he was as silent as the Bavarian forests he'd left behind. Our American soldier, Corporal Henry Michel, was from a world away, a place of sun and citrus groves, Los Angeles, California. Henry was a gentle soul who'd been thrust into the harsh reality of war. His job now was processing prisoners, a monotonous task of cataloging personal effects. But Klaus was different. He refused to surrender the locket. He didn't fight or argue. He simply held it tight, his eyes pleading in a way that transcended language. Henry, remembering the locket his own sweetheart had given him, felt a pang of empathy. Standard procedure was to confiscate everything, but something stopped him. Instead, he motioned for Klaus to open it. With trembling fingers, Klaus complied. Inside, on one side, was a faded, sepia-toned photograph of a smiling young woman. It was a common sight, a universal symbol of what soldiers fought for and yearned to return to. But it was the other side that drew Henry's breath. Tucked behind the tiny photo was a minuscule, folded piece of paper. It wasn't a military secret or a coded message. It was something far more personal and far more powerful. Henry, with a basic grasp of German from his pre-war education, carefully unfolded the brittle paper. The ink had faded, but the handwriting was elegant, looping script. The first few words were a simple dedication, but as Henry's eyes scanned the message, his heart began to pound in his chest. The message wasn't addressed to Klaus. It was written to the woman in the photo, a woman named Lena, and it was signed by someone named Gregor, Klaus's older brother, who had been killed on the Eastern Front years earlier. The note was a love letter, a promise to return, filled with dreams of a future that would never come to pass. But it was the last line of the letter, a postscript scrawled at the bottom. That made the world spin for Henry. Gregor had written about his dream of leaving Germany, of starting a new life in America. He specifically mentioned a small bakery he'd heard about from a cousin who had emigrated years before the war. A bakery known for its incredible apple strudel, run by a kind German family who had settled in a sunny city on the West Coast. The name of the bakery was Michel's Pastries. Henry's hands began to shake. Michel's Pastries wasn't just any bakery. It was his family's bakery. His father, an immigrant who left Germany in the 1920s to escape the growing turmoil, had opened it in a small neighborhood in Los Angeles. The apple strudel recipe was a fiercely guarded family secret, passed down from his grandmother, the cousin Gregor mentioned. It had to be his own father. If you are liking this video, please like and subscribe for more. The world, which had seemed so vast and divided, suddenly shrank to the size of that small silver locket. Henry looked up from the note, his eyes meeting Klaus's, the German prisoner, who had been watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity, saw the shock on the American's face. In that moment, they were no longer victor and vanquished, American and German. They were just two young men connected by a bizarre twist of fate, a thread of shared history woven across oceans and battlefields. Henry tried to explain. His German was clumsy, but he pointed to himself, said his name, and then pointed to the name of the bakery in the letter. "My father," he managed to say. "Main Vader." Klaus's stoic expression finally broke. A look of stunned disbelief washed over his face. He explained, in broken English, that his brother Gregor had always dreamed of America, of finding their distant relatives and learning the baker's trade. The locket and the letter inside was the last piece of his brother he had left. It was a symbol of a dream that had died in the snows of Russia. This single artifact, this simple locket, had bridged an impossible gap. It revealed a hidden kinship, a family connection buried under the rubble of war and politics. Henria's father in Los Angeles and Klaus' family in Bavaria were branches of the same tree, separated by circumstance, but now unexpectedly reunited in the most unlikely of places. Henry made a decision that went against every rule in the book. He carefully refolded the letter, tucked it back behind the photo, and closed the locket. He then pressed it back into Klaus's hand. He didn't have the words to express the whirlwind of emotions he was feeling, but his actions spoke louder than any language. It was an act of humanity, a recognition that beneath the uniforms and the ideologies, they were bound by something more profound. For the remainder of Klaus's time at the camp, a silent understanding passed between the two men. Henry would often make sure Klaus received an extra piece of bread or a warmer blanket, small gestures of a connection that no one else understood. They rarely spoke, but they didn't need to. The shared secret of the locket was a conversation all its own. Years later, long after the war was a distant memory, Henry would often sit in the back of his family's bakery in Los Angeles, the scent of cinnamon and baked apples filling the air. He would hold the locket his own wife had given him and think of Klaus and the brother he never met. He tried to find Klaus after the war, writing letters to repatriation services, but he never received a reply. The fog of post-war chaos had swallowed him up. But the story doesn't end there. In the late 1990s, Henry's granddaughter, a history student at UCLA, became fascinated by her grandfather's wartime stories. For a university project, she decided to try and trace the German side of her family. Armed with the names Klaus and Gregor, and a small Bavarian town mentioned in her grandfather's journals, she began her search. Using online archives and genealogy databases, tools her grandfather could only have dreamed of, she found a record. She discovered that Klaus had survived the war. He had returned to his hometown, married his brother's sweetheart, Lena, and together they had rebuilt their lives. They had a son, whom they named Gregor. The granddaughter managed to make contact with this new Gregor, Klaus's son, who was now a man in his late 40s living in the same Bavarian town. The two families, separated by a world war and reunited by a locket, were finally and truly connected. Phone calls and letters crossed the Atlantic, filling in the gaps of a half-century. Henry, now in his late 70s, finally got to speak to the family of the silent prisoner he had met so long ago. He learned that Klaus had never forgotten the American corporal's kindness. The story of the locket and the Los Angeles bakery had become a legend in their family, a testament to a moment of grace in a time of hatred. This incredible story reminds us that history isn't just about battles and treaties. It's about the intricate, often invisible threads that connect us all. It's about the small objects, the letters, the lockets that carry the weight of our humanity. What Henry found in that locket wasn't just a hidden message. It was a mirror, reflecting a shared past and a hope for a connected future. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, our shared stories can light the way. Are you watching from Los Angeles or another part of the world? Let us know in the comments. We love hearing the stories of the families behind the soldiers. If you want to keep these incredible stories of humanity alive, subscribe to WW2 Tales and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.